In this video, we're going to talk about the Civil AccuDraw settings. To get to the Civil AccuDraw settings, if you go up to your Civil AccuDraw toolbar, which mine is already undocked and out here on my screen, first you have to make sure Civil AccuDraw is toggled on, and then to get to the settings, it's the second tool, just left click on it, and it'll bring up your Civil AccuDraw settings. Under the Civil AccuDraw settings, you have 4 tabs. You have Operation, Display, Coordinates, and Favorites. So first, let's go over the Operation tab. Your first setting is Auto Load. This is off by default, but if you wanted to check this on, what that would do, anytime you start the software, it will automatically load and turn on Civil AccuDraw for you. I like to be able to turn on which AccuDraw I want to use, whether it's Civil or the normal MicroStation AccuDraw, so I'm going to leave this one unchecked. The next setting is Floating Origin, and this one is checked on by default. What it does, if I were to go out and place a line, I'm just going to select my Place Smart Line tool. And since my Civil AccuDraw is turned on, every time I insert a vertex, that compass or origin is going to move with me. I'm going to right click and reset my tool and do an undo. If I were to uncheck the floating origin setting, the compass would no longer move with my mouse, and it should stay tied to the origin of the drawing. Usually by default, we leave the floating origin checked on. If for some reason you needed to go in and turn it off, you could. The next setting is Context Sensitivity. If this one is checked on, it enables tools to provide hints to AccuDraw to override its default behavior for smoother operation. And usually by default, this one is checked on. Next is the Smart Key-ins. This one's on by default as well. This one lets AccuDraw interpret a number as positive or negative depending on the direction of the pointer from the compass. So if I go back out and select my Place Smart Line tool, I have Civil AccuDraw checked on. I'm in my DX and DY mode. If I just go out and dynamically place a line and start to drag it to the southeast, and I know I want my X value to be 400 feet, I'll type in 400 and hit enter to lock it in. And then I know my Y direction, I want to be a negative 300 feet, but since I'm already dragging my cursor in the negative direction, I can just type in 300 and hit enter, and now you can see it locked in those numbers, and it replaced my 300 with a negative 300. If that's what I want, I would just left click to accept it, right click to reset it. So that's what the Smart Key-in will do for you. After Smart Key-ins, you have Preserve Method Locks. That is usually checked on by default. Basically what this does is when you're working in the tool and you have locked values, they will remain locked after switching the ordinate methods. So we usually leave that one checked on. The next one is Sticky Z-Lock. That one's usually off by default. If this Sticky Z-Lock is checked on, when you lock the Z axis, it will remain locked through consecutive operations. The next to last setting is Always Show Compass. So if I always wanted to see that compass out on my screen, I could check that on. And then your last setting is the Show AccuDraw Dialog. If I check that one on, it will bring up the Civil AccuDraw dialog box. So you would just enter your information here instead of having the information out on your cursor on the screen. I prefer the heads up display, so I'm just going to go ahead and turn this off. So now when I go out to my screen, you can see that heads up display on my cursor. So that's it for the operation. If I switch over to the Display tab, these are just the settings for my compass and my constraint dynamics, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But if for some reason you wanted to come and change the color on the compass or the constraints, You could come into this tab and change them there. If I expand this box a little bit, there is a button down here called Shortcut Key-ins. If I select that, it will bring up all the keyboard shortcuts that AccuDraw and Civil AccuDraw use. We're not going to go over all of these right now, but we will use some of these when we start drawing using Civil AccuDraw and MicroStation AccuDraw. So I'm just going to close this one, and we'll switch to the Coordinates tab. Under the Coordinates tab, first you have the unit round-offs. You have distance, angle, station, and offset. They all work similar. I'm going to show you the distance option. So if I come in here and type 100 feet and hit enter to turn it on, I'm just going to come out here and select my place line tool. Now when I left click to start my line and I start dragging it out, you can see it's trying to jump every 100 feet. So it's trying to round off your line to whatever distance you have checked on. Just going to left click to accept it and right click to end it. So that's what all the unit round-offs do. You can just round off whatever you're drawing to either a distance, an angle, a station, or an offset. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck the distance round-off because these will stay on until you turn them off. After the unit round-off, you have indexing. This is just the distance required to move the pointer from either the indexed axis or the AccuDraw origin in order to place a new data point. And these are both based on this tolerance number, which is the minimum distance in screen pixels. I think you can go up to a tolerance of 99. So that's kind of what the indexing does. Now if I switch to my last tab, my favorites, these are just a list of the tools on your Civil AccuDraw toolbar. So if you wanted to add or delete tools from here, you could do that. So that's basically all of your settings for your Civil AccuDraw.